against Willie Porges. Jeskai Black Obzon Blue players will be given the green light, and we will be underway here in the quarterfinals in just a moment.
Thompson overall, we asked him while we were getting set up here for the top 8 what he thought of his deck. Thompson very honest with himself and doesn't necessarily think because he top 8'd that his deck is necessarily a good one. He said that he loves the deck except for the mana. He thinks the mana is misbuilt, too many of his lands into the battlefield tapped, but he loves the spells.
Well, we are underway here. Porges going to start off with a Sunken Hollow. Thompson will sacrifice that Bloodstained Mire for a Smoldering Marsh as we begin things. Back to Thompson we do go. He'll take his second turn. We'll see if maybe there's a Jace on the way as he draws a Plains. He said he has liked some of the new cards. Has liked Chandra, has liked Kalidas, has not liked Linvala very much.
Yeah, Linvala's been too slow in the matchups where you would want a timely reinforcement sort of effect. But Chandra's looked impressive on camera all weekend long, and Thompson confirmed that.
A Windswept Heath here for Willie and a passing in the turn, so it's a slow start here for both players. Thompson going to miss a land drop, so it's an even slower start as Porges will sacrifice that Windswept Heath. We'll see what land Willie does want to search up. And he'll go with a basic forest. For Thompson, if he's able to win this tournament, that'd be 30 SCG points for him. And that'll put him right into the thick of things for a race to the Players' Championship.
We are so early on in the season. Jeff Hoagland, first place coming into this weekend for Season 1, at south of 80 points.
Yeah.
So 30 is just a huge chunk at this point.
Yep. Flooded Strand will be sacrificed now here by Willie Porges. And you have to imagine there's got to be some sort of play on the way, right?
Getting a Plains, and I'm going to guess an Anafenza will be coming momentarily. Another splash in Porges' deck, 4 main deck copies of Reflector Mage.
Yep. It's a heck of a Magic card right there. And there is Anafenza. That'll resolve as Thompson draws a card. Picked up a copy of Jace, a little late to the party.
And no copies of Sylvan Advocate. I would have assumed with Stubborn Denial that would have made its way in the deck, but it looks like Porges went in a different direction.
Roast is the play on Anafenza as we head back Porges' way. Siege Rhino in hand along with the Polluted Delta. And it looks like Porges does have a copy of Reflector Mage in hand right now.
And Mana War, very good historically against people who are missing land drops.
Yes.
And Reflector Mage even better in that scenario, the Mana War.
Canopy Vista is the land, and Gideon is the play. Now that's a card we actually haven't seen very much of this weekend because we've seen so much of 4-color Rally that we have just not seen very much of this Planeswalker.
Yeah, not a whole lot of Obzon aggro, and the Obzon aggro lists that we have seen have been light on Gideon so far.
A Mountain the draw for Thompson.
But you can appreciate this card's not great against Rally because they gum up the board. And it's not great against Ramp because it's a little slow to bring to bear. And if those are the 2 top decks coming in the weekend, maybe a good time to leave your Gideons at home.
A Monastery Mentor there from Thompson. After finally drawing a land, so now we go back Willie Porges' way. Gideon, always a difficult card for these Jeskai Black decks to beat. We have seen some builds of Jeskai Black kind of stretch their mana a little bit to play a card like Ruinous Path to be able to deal with the Planeswalker.
It's one of the tougher things about leaning heavily on spells and less on creatures, which is the direction these Jeskai Black decks have been going in months, is you become a lot more vulnerable to Planeswalkers.
Here's an attack for 2. Another Knight Ally on the way here. Uprooted Delta. And now a Siege Rhino. Now that'll end the battlefield. Porges will gain a little bit of life. Thompson will lose some. And the 4/5 body certainly is relevant right now as we head back Thompson's way.
I think Porges was contemplating there using Dramoka's command to take care of the Monastery Mentor, but with his board as large as it is, with Thompson missing land drops, and with Porges sitting on Stubborn Denial, I don't think he's that concerned about Monastery Mentor making a token or even 2 tokens this turn.
Thompson does have a copy of Duress in hand, and that could play a role in things here. But more than anything, Gerry just needs some lands. But Willie's built up a nice board here with Gideon and Siege Rhino and a couple Knight Allies. You mentioned the Stubborn Denial in hand and the Polluted Delta to help cast it. Willie Porges is in some pretty good shape right now. Thompson might be thinking Painful Truths here, and he will cast Painful Truths. He'll also get to make a Monk. We'll see if this resolves.
If Porges' fight over this, I think it's more of a concern about mana efficiency rather than caring about Thompson drawing 3 and losing 3 life, because Thompson's so far behind on the board.
And it looks like that's going to resolve. So 3 cards on the way. One of them is a Wooded Foothills. However, that does not find blue mana, though it's unclear how badly Thompson needs blue mana at this stage. Jace does not seem to be a great card right now. He'll sacrifice that Wooded Foothills. Going to fall down to 10. We'll see what the land he wants to search up is. Looks like Smoldering March was on top of the deck, and I think that's the land he's going to find.
Well, if he's fetching right now, I'm assuming that he's doing this with the intent on following up with Duress, and that's the land that allows him to do it.
He also picked up a copy of Shambling Vent, but as we know, that enters the battlefield tapped. And that might be the plan for next turn. And it looks like he will go with Duress and get to make a Monk there for Monastery Mentor. Trigger Prowess as well, but I don't think any attacking to be done here. Porges will sacrifice Blue to Delta. And even if he has no other spells in hand, I think it's worth just casting the Stubborn Denial to conceal what your hand is.
Well, Porges has a Dromoka's Command in hand and a Siege Rhino.
Okay.
So if he draws a 6 land next turn, he gets to do everything. I don't think Thompson can survive. And even if he fails to do that, if he draws a spell, any spell plus Dromoka's Command is likely to be his turn also.
Modern Classic players, that is time. Active player can review the first 5 turns.
Stubborn Denial will counter the Duress. And we're going to head back Willie Porges' way, as we do have an update here for you. As Corey McDuffie with a Tarka Red does win game number 1 over Dalton Osmond. A Tarka Red up a game over Blue-Red Prowess.
And I think Porges might have just picked up land number 6.
Well,
and between Dromoka's Command and the board and a Siege Rhino in hand, if Thompson is able to survive this turn, he's going to be dead the next one.
yeah, that's what it feels like, right?
No sweeper in his deck game 1, so.
Porges, as you mentioned, Dromoka's Command and Siege Rhino in hand. Just wants to make sure all of his mana, lines up appropriately to play all of his spells. Now he might start by just going up with Gideon and attacking. Gideon will go up. Here's an attack with all the creatures. Thompson would like to do some blocking. And it looks like his only block is going to be in front of Gideon. He'll take 8. Going to fall down to 2. And now here's a Siege Rhino. And that'll do just fine, as Willie Porges going to win game number 1 here over Gerry Thompson. Obzon Blue able to break serve up a game here over Jeskai Black.
Yeah, Thompson had 1 stumble there, and that was it. Porges' draw was a little on the slow side, but he was able to make his land drops and was able to get a Gideon in play before Thompson got anything going, and the consequences of that cascaded for the remaining turns of the game.
Well, let's take a look at the sideboard, shall we? Because that's where each player is going. So we'll start there with Gerry Thompson and his Kalidas, Trader of Get, 3 Radiant Flames, 2 Rose, 2 Dispel, 3 Negate. An other end, a Chandra Flamecaller, a Linvala the Preserver, and an Infinite Obliteration.
So I think he wants the Utter End and the 2 Roasts, just good answers to 3 and 4 mana creatures that are on the ground. I could see the additional copy of Chandra coming in this matchup if you think the game's likely to go long. And there's enough high value cards in Porges' deck where Dispels and Negates make some amount of sense. I would probably lean on bringing in the Negates because he wants more answers to Gideon, but some mixture of the counter spells I think are likely to come in.
For Willie Porges, 4 Self-Inflicted Wound, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Hollowed Moonlight, an Ochthide's Command, 2 Jace's Prodigy, 2 Painful Truths to Dispel, and an Exert Influence.
I like the 2 copies of Painful Truths in this matchup and the Dispel. I think the 2 copies of Jace are okay if you think that Thompson is likely to side out a lot of his shock effects, which seems likely in the matchup. The rest of the sideboard, not all that attracted to me, but with Thompson having Treasure Cruise and potentially sideboarding into more expensive spells, Porges might want to dabble in Disdainful Stroke.
Well, those are the options there for both players. They will sideboard, shuffle up, and get ready for game number 2. Gerry Thompson will be on the play. We'll talk about Season 1, the schedule, and, of course, the Kitchen Links playmat. Now in Las Vegas during the conclusion of Season 4. That invitational counted towards Season 1, and Caleb Scherer did win that invitational, so congratulations to him. Brian Braun-Duin won our Standard Open at Las Vegas, so that's why he's very close to the top of the leaderboard. In Cincinnati to kick off 2016, that's where we watched Bobby Fortinelli get the job done. In Charlotte, we saw Jund get the job done in Modern. Now we're here in Atlanta, where we're working on crowning a champion. Next weekend, we go to Columbus,
where you will be battling. After that, we'll have the regional championships. Go.starcitygame.com for more information. Find the regional championship closest to you. After regionals, we head over to Louisville, then our Legacy Open in Philadelphia, Sarah in Indianapolis, Sarah in Baltimore, and then the Season 1 Invitational in Columbus, April 15th through the 17th, Standard and Modern as the invitational formats.
Now, of course, any Open that you do play in, and you probably know this by now, but Kitchen Links is the playmat that you'll get all throughout Season 1. So you sign up for an Open, you get a Kitchen Links. Simple, easy, sign up, take it on with you.
Get it on site when you register for any of our Open events.
Back to the match we go. Game number 2 about to be underway. You see each player looking at each other's deck list because that is public information when you do make your way to the elimination rounds. It is certainly one of the benefits of being there, and Gerry Thompson is very familiar with this area of the tournament. Another Open top 8 for him. Let's make it number 19 as we do update that graphic over the course of the work week. Open wins 5, could be 6 if you're able to make the comeback here and win the next couple of matches. Invitational top 8s, 6. Invitational wins 2 for the 31-year-old from Elk River, Minnesota. It's been an impressive career for Gerry, and I'd say right now we're probably in the middle of it. I think he's been playing Magic for a pretty long time.
I think so too, and not a big surprise to see Gerry have a lot of success week 1. Very good at both identifying the powerful cards that people might be sleeping on a little bit, and also very good at identifying what new cards he thinks people are going to be drawn to, what new decks people are going to be drawn to. And so having a good metagame read week 1, it's a tough skill to have, but it's something in Thompson's wheelhouse.
Well, we'll see what he can put together here for game number 2. A little bit of stumbling and fumbling with the mana, and Willie Porges was able to run him down pretty easily there. But Abzan Blue is a pretty unforgiving deck. If you stumble and fumble against this deck, its creatures are large, its spells are powerful, and it kills you quick.
Well, it's even more pronounced in the builds that have Stubborn Denial, because once you fall behind, it's not even like you can hope to peel a roast or a murderous cut to get back to parity. When you fall behind on the board, it's very, very hard to catch up.
Again, when we do have updates for you, we will certainly let you know what they are, as Corey McDuffie was up a game in his match against Dalton Osman. That's a Tarka Red versus Blue-Red prowess. We've got Christopher Brickley, number 3 overall seed, playing Mono Green Eldrazi against Joe Lissette, number 6 overall seed, playing 5-color Bring the Light. And then Marcel Strotz, who's playing Red-Black Dragons against Andy Ferguson, who is playing Abzan Company. That's 2 versus 7. Again, any updates we have, we will certainly bring to you. And we do have an update for you right away. That Eldrazi deck did not take much time at all to take care of Joe Lissette. Christopher Brickley wins that match over Joe Lissette 2-0. Mono Green Eldrazi moving on.
I mean, I thought that matchup was going to be bad for Lissette, but not that bad. That ended pretty fast.
Well, if you talk to Joe over the course of this weekend, he actually said, I think my Eldrazi matchup, all forms of it, is really bad.
Yeah.
And I think that that's definitely true. Now, that match played out a little bit quicker than I thought it would, but those big mana effects, Joe's deck does just not have a good answer. So Lissette with another top 8 to add on to his resume, but it's not going to be another title for him, unfortunately, getting knocked out of the tournament. For Marcel Strauss with Red-Black Dragons, number 2 overall seed, he wins game number 1 over Andy Ferguson. That's Red-Black Dragons up a game over Abzan Company.
And I bet he's happy to hear the news about the Eldrazi deck advancing to the semifinals instead of Lissette's Bring to Light deck. Bracket shaping up very nicely for Marcel right now if he's able to get past Andy.
Thompson will be on the play here. We'll see if he wants to keep his opening hand. It looks like both players will. Thompson just trying to figure out which land he wants to start off with. One thing that Gerry did tell us is that he's not in love with his mana base for the weekend.
He did mention that. A lot of his lands enter the battlefield tap. He hasn't been able to cast things on time. That game missed several land drops, and even by turn 4, or excuse me, by land drop number 4, still didn't have blue mana at the end of that game. So,
well, another result as Thompson will sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire to search up a land, fall down to 19. Corey McDuffie's going to win his match there over Dalton Osman. 2-0. A Tarka Red, get you a Tarka dead. Moving on to the semifinals. Plays the winner of this match, actually. Basic Mountain there for Thompson. Soulfire Grandmaster. That's the draw. Let's see what turn 2 brings here for Thompson. See the flooded strand there in his hand. And he's thinking quite a bit about what he wants to do as far as sequencing is concerned. He'll sacrifice the flooded strand. He'll play a Soulfire Grandmaster, so it looks like a plane's on the way. And there is the planes. Now he does have a Canopy Vista in hand. I think the thing that he might be missing at this stage is both black and blue mana.
Yeah, well, that's the spot that Thompson's deck is going to get into pretty frequently here. He can either give up several turns of development here and fetch battle lands to make sure that he has all of his colors of mana, or he can cast some things early on time and give up some colors. I think Thompson's just hoping to draw lands down the road. Most of his fetch lands will find the appropriate battle lands, assuming that he has enough basic 7 come into play on tap. So he wants to get a Soulfire Grandmaster in play, giving up some colors in the meantime.
Porges will sacrifice a Wooded Foothills and a Windswept Heath here. And he'll go with a Plains and a Forest. Forest off of the Foothills, Plains off of the Windswept Heath for clarification. And a spell on the way. And it'll be a Den Protector face up and a passing of the turn. Let's go back Gerry Thompson's way. Picked up a copy of Roast. And it looks like Thompson actually has a copy of Smoldering Marsh in hand, so it looks like maybe blue mana is the only problem right now. Oh, he's got a Polluted Delta.
Yeah,
right.
he's smooth. His mana's good.
Maybe he's a little mana flooded. Who knows? He'll sacrifice the Polluted Delta. Fall down to 17 here, Will Thompson. Sunken Hollow, the weapon of choice.
When your opponent plays a Den Protector face up on turn 2, it's usually giving away a fair bit of information. There's some matchups where people just need to block right away, like against a Tarka Red, where it's not necessarily saying very much. In a matchup like this, where that isn't the case, it usually indicates your opponent's hand is very land light and resource heavy if they don't feel the need to leave the Den Protector for somewhere down the line to get something back.
There's Monastery Mentor. Andy Ferguson ties things up against Marcel Strouts. Obzon Company, Red Black Dragons, going to game number 3. A Flooded Strand, which can't find black mana thanks to Sunken Hollow, can give Porges all the colors he's looking for, and that's exactly what he's going to find. Well, we'll see what the play's going to be. It'll be an Anafenza and a passing of the turn.
Really bad news here for Porges if Thompson just has essentially any removal spell.
Well, he does have one, and it's a copy of Roast. Now, that doesn't mean he has to play it this turn, because he did pick up a copy of Monastery Mentor, so he might have some interest in actually casting that one.
Well, the issue here, I think Thompson is very likely to use a removal spell this turn, because if he just plays another creature, suddenly he has to worry about Dromoka's commands. As things currently stand, if you kill the Anafenza, he's left with just Den Protector, and there isn't a whole lot to be done with Dromoka's command.
Well, there is a Roast. That'll bring a Monk along with it, also a Prowess trigger for the Monastery Mentor, and 5 life thanks to the Soulfire Grandmaster. So a lot going on from casting just one spell there for Thompson.
In first place with 21 points, Todd Anderson. In second place with 20 points, Sarayu Patel.
Here come the beatdowns.
Third with 20 points.
I think the last card in hand here for Thompson is Treasure Cruise, and he has a land in hand, so hoping to actually get the trade here to get another card in his graveyard, play the land, cruise up, make another Monk.
Well, 5 cards in the graveyard right now. If it's a fetch land, that would be card number 6, yeah. So he'll have to wait a turn to cruise. But cruise is online for next turn nonetheless.
Winning by a tiebreaker.
For Porges, it's a Reflector Mage. There goes Monastery Mentor. And that's a bit of a beating, honestly, because Thompson has 2 Mentors in his hand right now. However, Porges misses his land.
Fortunately, Thompson has the consolation prize of simply cruising this turn, so
Yes.
it's not that bad, but yes, he's set pretty far behind. It wouldn't surprise me if Reflector Mage was just the bomb in the mirror match, because it's just the first person, it's who's on the front foot for the whole game, and Reflector Mage is just stops that immediately.
Yeah, it puts you on the front foot for multiple turns.
Your opponent goes turn 3 Anafenza, you go turn 3 that. Then they, what do they do next turn?
Yep.
Maybe nothing or whatever. Yeah. You have your removal spell.
Here's a Treasure Cruise. That's a 5-mana Treasure Cruise, so Thompson deals away 3 cards. Going to leave Roast and Soulfire Grandmaster in the graveyard and pass the turn back over to Porges. Porges tapping a forest. Oath of Nissa. Take a look at the top couple of cards. There's a forest in there along with the Polluted Delta. This one a new addition to an Obzon deck. I haven't seen this one in this deck before. There's the battlefield. You look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature, a land, or a planeswalker. You see the reveal there of Polluted Delta from Willie. You get to put that in your hand. The rest go on the bottom. And there are some planeswalkers in this deck. So the mana aspect of it, not trivial. Here comes Reflector Mage.
Unlikely to come up, but I'm sure at some point in this tournament, Porges has had 4 lands in play, not had double white.
But that's all that Porges could do on that turn, so he passes the turn back over to Thompson. Now Thompson can actually play those Monastery Mentors if you'd like. Also picked up a copy of Painful Truths and has a Fiery Impulse in hand. Going to start by sacrificing a Wooded Foothills. Gerry typically a pretty fast player, but in elimination rounds he does slow down a little bit, which I think is an appropriate time to slow down.
Yeah. It's untimed, though slow play still applies.
Indeed.
Can't be here all day. Especially since at this point, you don't have a good sense of what's going on in Porges' hand. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's all spells, but could be a lot going on over there.
Thompson going to start by playing a Monastery Mentor. And now here's a Fiery Impulse. A Monk token will be made. And we may see a response here from Porges. Now remember, Thompson had the opportunity to play Painful Truths this turn. Electing not to, maybe doesn't want Stubborn Denial to work its way into the equation.
No, maybe not. And also with with Porges rather kind of fumbling around here a little bit, you can try to play a game of get ahead on the board. Most of Porges' threat at this point are going to be about 4 mana because he hasn't been doing anything with the lands that he had in play. You untap, kill his thing, attack him for a bunch, get it on the Monk, rinse and repeat. No real need to do anything with Painful Truths right now. And Thompson has also got a handful of cards, so I'm sure he's got plenty to do with his mana right now.
I got the gas back up with Treasure Cruise. Now here's a Prairie Stream. That will get to enter the battlefield untapped, given the forest and the plains that are on the battlefield. And it looks like we've got a murderous cut on the way. And a result to tell you here, as Andy Ferguson does win his match over Marcel Strauss, 2-1. Able to come back from being down a game, and Obzon Company does move on, taking care of Red Black Dragons.
Should have never doubted you. Should have never doubted you.
Yeah, especially against Gerry, of course. So Cut took care of the Mentor. A Monk was left behind, and there was an attack. So now Porges will play a Polluted Delta. And there is a Swamp. And now here's a Siege Rhino.
Trivia question for you.
Ooh, trivia. I love trivia.
Porges' deck, 25 lands in it. How
Yeah.
many of them produce mana?
Hold on. Murderous Cut's going to take care of that, or try to take care of that Rhino. How many of them produce mana?
Because we exclude the fetch lands.
Yeah, I understand.
25 lands. How many produce mana?
9.
The answer is 9.
Yes! Yes! I thought that because the last time you asked me a question, the answer was also 9. Really? Only 9 mana?
16 fetches and 9 lands that make mana.
Holy crap, that's crazy.
Standard is in a weird place.
Yes, it is. That's wild. So this Murderous Cut's still on the stack, and basically Willie, he's either deciding to Stubborn Denial or bluffing Stubborn Denial, one of the two.
And this is pretty bad news for Porges if the Murderous Cut here is the test spell.
That's completely true. Because also, if Murderous Cut resolves, now Stubborn Denial is just boring old force play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's kind of squeezed there.
Yeah.
If he's got it, his hand's forced to do something. This is only 4-power creature. It's only creature, period.
A land of painful truths. And how about a monk? A monk is good to go. 3 cards on the way, one of which is Disdainful Stroke. Those monks are 2-power attackers, so in they come. Porges is going to fall down to 9. Thompson will happily pass the turn back. He's built up a nice board, only 1 mana available. But he's done a nice job here of getting ahead and staying ahead.
Well, the problem is once Monastery Mentor is in play unchecked, any removal spell from Porges doesn't really catch him up. And Porges, because of his misland drops and the nature of his deck being so dense with 3 and 4 mana plays, hasn't really gotten in a position to play 2 spells in 1 turn. So he is falling behind on the board, and Thompson is regularly gassing back up 3 cards at a time. Hard to keep up when that's happening.
Here's a Siege Rhino. Willie will get to gain some life, make Gerry lose some life, and now he's going to tap some mana here. Perhaps we have another Murderous Cut on the way, but he is grabbing a lot of cards from his graveyard. Either way, a Delve spell on the way. And you see the way Gerry's already picking up his Monastery Mentor. He knows it's going to receive a Murderous Cut. Or does he? Smells like a Treasure Cruise to me, maybe?
Tassiger.
Oh, Tassiger. Pardon me. It is Tassiger. So 2 4/5s. And a passing of the turn. Not a bad turn there, as it's 12-12. Duress the draw, roast in hand.
Yeah, roast is bad news here, but at least Porges was finally able to have his 2 spells in 1 turn. Try to catch up a little bit.
Now here's the question. What do you roast? I guess Duress will give you some information on what to roast. And Gideon down, Siege Rhino left over.
I think trample against your tokens is relevant, and the opportunity for him to draw a second Tassiger is relevant. Thompson going the other way.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Siege Rhino. Here come the attackers. Remember, these monks are 3/3s right now, and Monastery Mentor is a 4/4.
Yeah, my thinking is I don't think the game is going to last long enough for Tassiger activations to really work itself into the equation. I would have erred towards the Siege Rhino, but it's very close.
Well, Mentor down, Bloodstained Mire is the land for the turn, and Thompson feeling pretty good about things with this Disdainful Stroke. Now, if Porges does draw a copy of Stubborn Denial, things maybe get a little more interesting.
If he can punch through the Rhino, then he goes to 6, and the board is manageable, assuming Thompson doesn't rip off a bunch of card drawers in a row. Back to having the game. But if he fails to draw Stubborn Denial, then Disdainful Stroke is going to be too much.
Reflector Mage was the draw. Reflector Mage is an interesting draw. But Porges is going to go for Siege Rhino. Thompson is going to go for Disdainful Stroke. That will resolve. Siege Rhino down. And Porges is going to concede the game knowing a lethal attack is coming. So, Gerry Thompson is able to win game number 2 here over Willie Porges. Jeskai Black, Obs on Blue, getting ready for game number 3.
Could have potentially bought himself one more turn with the Reflector Mage, which is a safer play if you're worried about Disdainful Stroke. But most likely, Porges is going to have to just cast the Siege Rhino next turn anyway. You're giving Thompson one more draw to the Disdainful Stroke, and I think the Siege Rhino gives you a higher chance of stabilizing the game next turn, assuming it resolves and Thompson can't generate a spell.
So what do we think? Or anything change given that Willie's going to be on the play, so Gerry will be on the draw?
If I'm on the play as Porges, I'm more interested in having Jason. It's a harder card for him to answer. I don't think if much really changes beyond that. But if Jace was a swing card before, I know it's a little dodgy because Thompson has access to some shocks and they might still be in his deck. But Jace becomes more attractive on the play.
Well, you see the options there for both players yet again. They're going to go back to the drawing board here. Willie Porges will be on the play for game number 3. We talked about the Season 1 schedule. Now we'll talk about Season 2 as it was announced on StarCityGames.com by StarCityGames.com President Pete Hoffling. Now, of course, the Columbus Invitational, you know about that from Season 1, but this other stuff, you don't.
Well, we open up with back-to-back Modern events again, with opens in Milwaukee and Indianapolis, then Standard in Atlanta and Orlando, a Modern Open in Dallas at the end of June. After that, we head on over to Worcester for Legacy, Standard in Columbus, and in Baltimore. In August, we have a regional championship, which we'll have more information about as we get closer to that event, a Modern Open in Syracuse, and then the Season 2 Invitational in New Jersey, August 19th through the 21st, Modern and Standard as the Invitational formats.
Now, the playmat for Season 2, well, that'll be coming later down the road. So keep your eyes peeled for that, as that announcement will be made on StarCityGames.com and a whole bunch more. But that gives you an idea of where Season 2 and the dates and locations are going to be. So we hope to see you at any and all of those dates. But right now we're here in Atlanta during Season 1, where Gerry Thompson's playing against Willie Porges. Jeskai Black against Obs on Blue. Pretty cool thing about this top 8. 8 great players, 8 different decks as well. So pretty cool stuff in this brand new format. Just, we had a feeling Oath of the Gatewatch was going to have a big impact, and it certainly has.
Yes, and it, like I said when we first came back here, it's nice to see a mixture of old decks getting new stuff and new decks playing with all new stuff. And we've gotten both of those all throughout both days of competition and now in the top 8 as well.
I wrote down a bunch of cards as I was getting prepared for this tournament of just things to keep my eyes to look out for. It's a pretty long list. You think of Chandra Flamecaller, which Gerry has in his deck, Nissa Voices Endicott, which you saw very little this weekend, Linvala the Preserver, also very little. The new Oaths, Oath of Nissa, probably the best of the bunch, but we didn't really see any of the other ones. Eldrazi Displacer and the rest of the Eldrazi that are out there. Goblin Dark Dwellers, which you saw a pretty fair amount of.
Yeah, it's certainly a very solid card for mid-range decks that have the good 3-mana removal spells. Kent Ketter trying a new build of Jeskai with Jeskai Charm and Exquisite Firecraft plus Crackling Doom, something going on there as well.
Flaying Tendrils, that brand new Infest effect that this format certainly needed to contain those aggressive decks, though it hasn't stopped Corey McDuffie at all this weekend. That card seeing some play. Expedite and Slip Through Space in the Blue-Red Prowess decks. Kozilek's Return, World Breaker in the Eldrazi decks. Kozilek, Reality Smasher, Matter Shaper, Eldrazi Mimic, Thought-Knot Seer, even Ruin in their wake if players can figure out a way to build their mana base appropriately with that card. I didn't even write down Sylvan Advocate.
Yeah.
And the creature lands like Wandering Fumarole and Hissing Quagmire. So Oath of the Gatewatch is having a huge impact.
Reckless Bushwhacker in the top 4.
Yeah.
A very new build of a target red here from Corey McDuffie. No copies of Temur Battle Rage. So even though that's one card, it totally changes the structure of the deck. Now you can become much more of a go wide token plus a Tarkus Command Reckless Bushwhacker deck. Hopefully we'll get to see McDuffie later on in the elimination rounds.
Well, Willie Porges is going to take a moment to use the restroom, so we'll come back in the booth here. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan bringing you the coverage here from SCG Atlanta. It's been fun to watch so far. We had 567 players come out. Weather certainly did play a role in our attendance this weekend, but snow apocalypse is apparently happening up north.
567 is great for week 1 of Standard. It's a tournament typically where the viewership numbers are great. Everyone wants to see what's going on here. And usually there's a Pro Tour coming up that's Standard. This time it's Modern, so you would hypothetically assume less interest because people aren't preparing for the Pro Tour. We still got great viewership numbers, but people don't have the new cards. They don't know what deck they want to build yet. And so often our attendance numbers are a little bit on the lower side. Nearly 600 people for week 1 in Atlanta, especially given the weather. I'm thrilled with this turnout.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Trust me. And a lot of the players and the big name ones certainly did come for those SCG points to try to qualify for the Players' Championship, which gives us an idea and a good segue to go to the leaderboard for Season 1. Now, we're only only 2 events in,
Yep.
which is crazy to think, and this is the 3rd event of Season 1. So we know that Jeff Hoagland's right near the top of things. Not entirely sure how Jeff did finish this weekend. Not in elimination rounds for the first time this year, as he did go back-to-back. But you see 79 SCG points for him. Caleb Shearer with 65. Brian Braun doing with 52. If we ended things right now, those players would be in the Players' Championship, as it's top 3 per season that get in now, as opposed to who's on the very top.
But this season is not over by a long shot. We know that we had solid performances here from Bradley Carpenter and Todd Stevens. Fell a little bit short of top 8, but they still a very solid open performance and a lot of points here as well.
You see Bradley Carpenter in 6th place with 46 SCG points. He lost playing for top 8, so a big loss there for him. And then Vidianto Wajaya rounds out the top 8. You look at 9 through 16 on here. That's where you'll find Christopher Giuliano, Robert Vaughn, Casey Porges, Joe Lissette, who made top 8. Same thing with Gerry Thompson. Those guys were tied going in. Joe Lissette getting knocked out in the quarterfinals. Logan Mize, Michael Cortez, and Alex Smith to round it out. Now, as I mentioned for Gerry Thompson, not down a game, tied up right now, 34 SCG points. Now, if he's able to win this thing, that gives him 30. That puts him up to 64 points. That really puts him in the conversation. Then some players are maybe not breathing so easy. Though, to be fair, I don't think many players are breathing easy right now because we're only in our 3rd event of the season.
And the swings are going to be much more pronounced this year on the tour. I felt like qualification for the Players' Championship last year, it was a lot of effort, but it was a lot of kind of nickel and dime effort. IQ here, top 32 here, and so on and so forth. With the point structure changing, now there's so much pressure on your open performances, to a lesser degree your performances in the Classics. And these first place finishes are so valuable. They constitute such a huge portion of the points right now. Gerry goes from 2nd page of the standings to, I believe, 2nd place in the standings, period, with a win here. So the swings are going to be a lot more dramatic this year than last year.
We take a look at the prize slide very quickly and back down to our matches where we're going to go. As I mentioned, that first place is 30 SCG points, but it's also $5,000, which is pretty cool, and an invite to our first Invitational in Columbus. 2nd place, $2,000, 25 SCG points, and an invite to our first Invitational in Columbus. Top 4, top 8, so on and so forth. So the players that we're watching, they're walking out of here with at least $500 and 15 SCG points, but maybe much more than that, as I believe Willie is back at the table. So that means Game 3 about to be underway. So down to the feature match here we will go to watch the conclusion of our only quarterfinal match that is left between Gerry Thompson and Willie Porges. Do keep in mind, 3 other matches already done. Corey McDuffie, he is through with a Tarka Red, defeated Dalton Osmond, who was playing Blue-Red Prowess. Christopher Bricky with Mono Green Eldrazi took care of Joe Lissette very quickly. Joe playing 5-color Bring to Light. And then Marcel Strouts with Red-Black Dragons. He lost to Andy Ferguson 2-1. Ferguson able to break serve there as he was the number 7 overall seed with Obzon Company. We got one more match to figure out, and it's only going to be 1 game to do it. Willie Porges will be on the play here for game number 3. See if each player is happy with their opening hand or not. And it looks like they are, but there's always that slight pause at the beginning because as a player with the mana bases that these two have, you got to figure out what lands to play.
I know I'm going to keep, but give me a minute.
Yep.
I played at Grand Prix Portland a couple of years ago, which was modern. I was playing the 5-color zoo deck, and I had a lot of keeps. Okay, I'm going to need 10 seconds here to map out what the first 3 turns are going to look like before I actually start taking some game actions.
You got to make sure you do get those mana bases correct and figure out which lands to search for.
And this is harder than what I was doing.
Oh, yeah. This is very, very difficult stuff. Porges is going to start with Flooded Strand searching up Canopy Vista as he falls down to 19. So now his second turn of the game. Might be time for something like a Warden of the First Tree, perhaps an Oath of Nissa. It'll be a Warden. See what the second land's going to be. It's going to end the battlefield tapped. It's Sunken Hollow. And now we're going Thompson's way. He'll draw. Jace the draw. A relatively powerful card.
Yes. Win rate when uncontested. I would love to see the numbers.
I would too. I have to imagine fairly high. There's a duress. Thompson wants to know exactly what's going on over there, so Porges lay out his hand. There's a Siege Rhino with Gideon. A couple of lands here in polluted deltas. And a mystery green card there in the middle.
Oath of Nissa, I believe.
I think you're correct. Thank you. It's a new one. So we'll see what Thompson does want to select. Now remember, Gideon always pretty difficult for these Jeskai Black decks to be able to deal with.
Gerry gets access to better counter spells post-board at least. Mixtures of negates and disdainful strokes if he wants it.
Looks like he will take care of the Gideon and simply pass the turn back. Porges' mana base is a little bit strange right now. Those 2 polluted deltas in hand. Picks up a swamp for the turn. Looks like he might be thinking Oath of Nissa here.
Well, I think he wants to Oath of Nissa and make sure that he has the right mixture of lands available to pump the Warden to a 3/3 after the fact.
I'll take a look at the top 3 cards. We'll see what he wants to select. Again, he gets to choose between a creature, land, and planeswalker among those cards. There's a Warden in there. I think there might be another Gideon in there too. That's actually a Den Protector. So that, in a way, is another Gideon.
And he's got his curve situated now. Turn 3, Oath of Nissa, pump my Warden. Turn 4, Siege Rhino. Turn 5, Den Protector face down, ready to go up.
There's a Forest. Warden's larger. And an attack for 3 as Thompson will fall down to 17. Let's make it 16 thanks to the polluted delta. So Thompson will search up a land. And we'll see which one it's going to be. Again, Thompson has a very good idea of exactly what Porges is working with. 2 polluted deltas, a Siege Rhino, a Den Protector. As he does dig up a Prairie Street. Now Thompson will draw. Picked up a Flooded Strand. I believe he does have a copy of Painful Truths in hand. And it looks like also a copy of Roast. Now, what I've typically seen in this sort of matchup is, as long as Gideon doesn't show up, being able to play a long game against this Abzan deck, not a bad idea.
Well, you do have to be conscious of your life total. It's not free to go down as low as possible because they do have some reach in the long game with things like Siege Rhino and the creature lands. So, yeah, you can take some hits and you can use your life total as a resource to some extent, but it's not a pure control sort of matchup where you can go all the way down to 1 and be safe. So it's a balancing act.
There's Crackling Doom. Warden going to bite the dust.
And you see Thompson doing that on the main phase out of respect for Stubborn Denial.
Porges will draw a copy of Wooded Foothills. And that's a polluted delta. And there's a swamp. So now all battle lands moving forward here for Willie will be good to go. And I think we'll have a Siege Rhino on the way here that's going to bring Thompson down to 12. It'll also bring a Porges up to 19. So now we're going to head back Thompson's way. It'll be his 4th turn of the game. He'll draw a card. And Roast is what he's drawn.
You can see these games look quite a bit different here when Porges is on the play and has something going on early. You know, he's able to force Thompson just to respond, can't really use his time drawing cards, and can fire back up. Also, because Porges has cards like Den Protector in his deck, he's not necessarily beat if the game goes on for a long time. He can hang around late.
There's Flooded Strand.
It's not like Porges has got any one card to stick for very long. His Warden got in 1 attack. Looks likely like the Siege Rhino will get in 0 attacks, but it still feels very different.
I think it's going to be a Roasted Jace turn here in just a moment.
That's what I'm sensing as well.
And that's a pretty good turn because that means Jace will be flipping soon. Then it can recast Roast or Crackling Doom. And now we head back Willie's way. Willie will draw a Warden of the First Tree. That Den Protector, Thompson's known about given the Oath of Nissa. And I think the other two cards are just lands.
Porges is starting to hit a point where I think he might run into issues with the overlap on his fetch lands and battle lands moving forward.
You think so?
He's only got 9 lands in the deck, so, and only 2 of them are basic. So he's got 1 Canopy Vista remaining, and a forest remaining, plains remaining. It could start hitting him a little bit. I don't know how much it matters because he can function reasonably well on 5 lands, but he's running light.
Well, there's a Morph, and we know that's a Den Protector. So Thompson will untap. He'll draw a card. He knows his Den Protector, too. His Duress is the draw. We'll see where Gerry does want to start the turn. Remember, he's had Painful Truths in his hand for some time now, and the board is pretty clear, so it might not be a bad turn to draw 3 cards at the expense of 3 life.
Though he's also got to figure out some way to insulate himself from Gideon, because his hand's not really equipped to handle that card coming out of the graveyard and being recast next turn.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because he's got the ability to cast a Roast on the Den Protector, and then Willie could say, okay, I will unmorph Den Protector and get back Gideon, in which case Gerry can flip Jace, recast the rest from his graveyard or the rest from his hand, and then snag the Gideon.
Yeah, there's a line of play that allows him to do it. It is expending a lot of resources.
Yeah.
But
because I agree that Gideon is a bit of an issue, because it's always an issue for Jeskai Black. So in a way, Gerry could lead Willie into a line of play where he does get back Gideon. He's discarding a Roast. I would not feel good about that.
well, that roast might be flashback for just the reason you were mentioning.
Sure. That's what he's going to do. And part of the reason I think he's doing it this way is because he's enticing him to get back Gideon so that he can just cast Duress and take it.
Yep. And it looks like Porges is maybe considering getting back the Siege Rhino to protect himself from this.
Looks like he decided to go with Gideon. Now here's Duress to take it. And Thompson will see his hand a Warden of the First Tree and a Wooded Foothills. There's a Wooded Foothills for Thompson. And now he'll just pass the turn back and hope maybe a Gideon doesn't come off the top of the deck. And it looks like it was just another Warden of the First Tree there for Porges.
Although I will say, Warden is not the worst here.
No, not really.
He can cast both Wardens and pump both Wardens.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 6 lands in play, so he's not that far away from being able to go all the way up.
Exactly. And Gerry's hand right now, it's a Painful Truths which could turn into anything.
Yep.
But at the cost of life. And he does have some to work with. But his Jace can only go up to slow down a Warden. So there's Warden number 1. There's an activation right away. And now here's Warden number 2. And here's an activation right away. So they're both level 1, they're both 3/3s. But Porges is empty-handed, so if Thompson's able to find an answer, life is pretty good. And he does have a Murderous Cut in his hand, it appears. So he will sacrifice a Wooded Foothills, fall down to 10. He'll get himself a Smoldering Marsh, which will enter the battlefield untapped.
If Thompson can answer both of these threats, it becomes very hard for Porges to catch up.
I agree.
Because that Jace is going to go up to 3. That Jace at 3 represents a removal spell for a follow-up play. And then short of Gideon, I'm struggling to see Porges catching up unless he draws extremely well.
Well, here's Murderous Cut. 2 mana means delve away 3 cards, so 3 lands gone. And now Thompson will untap. He'll draw a card for the turn. Player's just sorting out the battlefield, making sure everything's okay. Picked up a copy of Bloodstained Mire for the turn. So how painful will the truths be?
Thompson can brick off from here.
Yep.
This is no guarantee of anything.
3 cards on the way as he falls to 7. Bloodstained Mire in hand. Crackling Doom, Painful Truths, and I believe a land. This is a Polluted Delta. Bloodstained Mire is going to bring him down to 6.
It's not the perfect selection of cards, but it's probably good enough here. You answer the Warden, your Jace goes up to 3 to represent another removal spell. But with the rest of his hand not being very much of anything, if Porges rips a Gideon off the top, things can become very difficult for Thompson here.
Gideon, Den Protector. Both seem to be pretty good draws. Now,
even Siege Rhino, now Thompson's at 3, and another Siege Rhino can finish the game.
Yeah. So it's a big draw step here for Willie Porges. Let's see how he does. That is an Anafenza.
At least that has the hope of getting the Jace off the table if you're
Yes.
Porges. If you know trades with a Roast or Crackling Doom, then you're a parity.
Thompson draws a Roast.
Now the complexity is, what do you do with that other copy of Painful Truths? You could cast it for 2.
I'm okay actually casting for 2.
You can cast it for 2.
It's not always, it doesn't have to always be 3. I don't love going down to 4, but if he does Painful Truths for 2, finds a Soulfire Grandmaster, cast a Roast, and then he gets his life back, and then we're talking about a completely different game all of a sudden.
If he does it for 3, it's a huge risk because he doesn't have a whole lot of answers. Doesn't have a whole lot of counter spells for Siege Rhino.
I'm just such a coward too. I don't want to go to 3 against Abzan, even though he's already. I think he's only taking care of 1 Siege Rhino. Well, here's Painful Truth. So
Let's find out if it's for 2 or for 3.
Yeah, because he did reorganize his mana. All right, it's for 2.
And he found a Disdainful Stroke.
That's big.
Perfect.
That's big.
Because now that Disdainful Stroke shuts off Siege Rhino, also shuts off Gideon.
That's a big find. Here comes Roast. That'll take care of Anafenza. There's a Polluted Delta plus the Jace, pass the turn back.
That's the swing right there. Now the big draw for Porges becomes a creature land.
Does he have any? He said he has 9 lands to tap for mana.
He's not even on any of that stuff. Yeah, the 4th color has made all those been removed from the deck. So.
Yeah, Shambling Vent, Hissing Quagmire, stuff like that you typically see in Abzan aggro, but this is Abzan blue, so you have to make some changes to be able to get blue mana into the deck. Jace is going to go up to 5, pass the turn back. Draw Go does not favor Willie.
That Jace represents at least 1 more removal spell, most likely 2 at this point with it at 5. And Porges' big draws here are cut off by Disdainful Stroke. So he has to chain together several big draws in a row. And Thompson has to just miss, basically.
Here's an Anafenza. Thompson taking a look at his graveyard here to see how Jace could take care of that. There's a myriad of ways. So he's just going to fan it out so he knows his options. Does have Crackling Doom in hand. He'll just cast that right now. So down goes Anafenza. 2 more damage going to be dealt over to Porges. And now we head Gerry's way. He'll draw another copy of Disdainful Stroke. Even harder Hammerlock, it feels. Perhaps now just looking for a card drawer like Treasure Cruise.
Even any creature would even be fine at this point.
And also true. Back to Porges we go. Jace is certainly looming heavily over this game. Because Jace basically, on 6 counters, it says, I have 2 answers to your next threats. And then if you do happen to peel a Gideon, well, I can counter that. And you don't have any creature lands in your deck either, so. And speaking of creature lands.
Boom. See a little laugh there from Thompson. Finally found something to win a game with.
Yeah, there's a Shambling Vent. Looks like Warden of the First Screen may have been the draw there for Willie Porges. And it is, but that one is easily answerable by Thompson. There's a Plains. And this in this instance, if you're Gerry, you don't even have to really worry about Stubborn Denial.
Yeah, you can't get the Warden up to a 4-power creature.
Porges smart, going to activate right away there with the Warden to make it into a 3/3, level 1, if you will. Thompson will draw. Copy of Fiery Impulse, clean answer.
Yeah, now he doesn't even have to mess around with anything out of his graveyard. He can keep blessing the Jace if he wants to do that.
And a mana-efficient way to get it done as well.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that I think to take into consideration with the Fiery Impulse is a card like Jamoka's Command. Because that could make things a little bit annoying, but
Well, at that point, that's the last card in hand, and then you can just use Jace to get off the table. Not a huge deal.
Thompson might be thinking Shambling Vent activation here.
Well, he has enough mana left over if he activates the Shambling Vent. Guess it's going down a different path. It's going to say to Disdainful Stroke and pay 1 for a potential Stubborn Denial.
This is a duress to make sure the coast is clear. All right, Polluted Delta.
Now it's safe for the same way because you know there's no Disdainful Stroke.
Now here comes the vent. In attack for 2. Thompson up to 6. Porges down to 11. And these Shambling Vent shots, they represent a couple of things. One, it's going to bring Porges' life down and Gerry's life up. But when Gerry's life goes up, that means Painful Truths can be recast from the graveyard.
I think at this point, Thompson's probably just leaning on, hoping that Jace can just flash back Crackling Dooms, and that alongside the Shambling Vent can get the game done. But if somehow the game drags out, he does have the option of gassing back up.
Reflector Mage the draw.
It's dead.
Polluted Delta is the land. And Porges is just going to figure out how he wants to play the Reflector Mage. Assuming it is a Reflector Mage. I could be wrong.
Wingmate Rock, maybe? It's got one in the deck.
And it is Wingmate Rock. And it is getting countered by Disdainful Stroke here in just a moment. Assuming Gerry has a land to search for as he sacrifices Polluted Delta.
This would be some unexpected sloppiness here for Thompson if he left himself with nothing to find with the
Yeah, there's a swamp.
copy of Polluted Delta.
So Gerry will shuffle, present, and we'll head back his way. And I think we'll see another Shambling Vent activation here in just a moment. Porges will pass the turn back. He'll draw. Will Thompson. Soulfire Grandmaster.
The clock has doubled.
It most certainly has. Now, again, if you're Thompson here, you might be thinking, okay, what are the ways that I can lose this game? Is it worth it for me to activate the Shambling Vent attack? Because Gerry has enough mana to play Soulfire Grandmaster, activate Soulfire Grandmaster, and Disdainful Stroke something.
The other side of it is he has enough mana to attack, cast Soulfire Grandmaster, and still have 2 up. I suppose at this point he can err on the side of super caution.
Yeah.
Just not even risk it.
Hey, his opponent's playing off the top of their deck, you know? And I in situations like this, I feel like sometimes I get a little too cautious, but I think he can take a super cautious line this one turn. Here's a Murderous Cut. And I think this works out great, right? Because now he can say, okay, pay with Soulfire Grandmaster, Disdainful Stroke something, and then leave Disdainful Stroke mana up in case you peel another spell that matters.
Right, and Thompson really getting paid off here for the patience, because you would hate to use the Disdainful Stroke on this Murderous Cut if you weren't getting it back for free, and you'd also kind of hate to lose the Soulfire Grandmaster.
Soulfire Grandmaster, if he gets on tap with it, puts a stranglehold on the game. There's Flooded Strand. Jason's going to go up to 6. Thompson going to go up to 7. Porges will fall down to 9. Reflector Mage. That'll resolve. Back to Gerry's hand it goes. Can't play Soulfire Grandmaster next turn. Thompson's going to go down to 6 here from Flooded Strand, get a land out of his deck. Looks like he's thinking Canopy Vista.
Here you also might be thinking I'm out. Oh no, he's not.
No, he's got a Vista and a Plains left in his deck.
Just leave the Vista in there because there's more overlap with other fetches.
To Gerry. He'll untap all these lands and draw. Jace. See if he wants to take Jace down this turn or not. Again, in a way, he's kind of got Shambling Vent, just taking care of the Reflector Mage so he doesn't have to get too crazy.
Well, Thompson's graveyard is an extension of his hand at this point, and he's in range of getting the game done fairly soon here. If the concern you have at this point is how do I play around like the perfect set of cards being on the top of Porges' deck, one way to play around it is by ending the game sooner.
Very true.
So you can get Porges to 7 this turn, animate this Shambling Event, get him to 5, and then your Soul Flyer Grandmaster's redeploy. You still have a Crackling Doom left over in your graveyard that's 2 more points of damage.
Yeah, a good way to protect against the draw steps is to cut the number of draw steps.
Right. So I like the patience that Thompson has showed up until this point, but now that Porges' life total is in range of ending the game, he may as well put it on the pedal a little bit.
Well, let's see what the play is here now. A Painful Truths for 3. That one matters.
Yep.
Looks like he wants to, well, he needs to tap a black for it, so he accidentally tapped a Prairie Stream. Fixes that. So 3 cards on the way, one of which is Jamoka's Command, another one's Flooded Strand, and I think another one's Jamoka's Command, and that is going to do it. Gerry Thompson's going to win this match here over Willie Porges, 2-1. Jeskai Black will take care of Obzon and Blue for the #1 overall seed in this tournament, and number 13 on our Season 1 leaderboard. He's going on to the semifinals to play against his good friend Corey McDuffie, who's playing a Tarka Red. Should be a fun match to watch, and we are certainly going to watch that one.
Yeah.